In our last episode with Martin, a retired software engineer and startup founder, Saloni and I got to understand more about his journey investing into Bitcoin. In this episode, we continue to explore his financial worldview, such as his views on the commonly perceived wealth of software engineers and startup founders, his opinions on NFTs, and views on asset diversification.
So it's interesting how our retired engineer was not was not rich like
From engineering.
engineering.
Yeah, it's
That's
actually
what
very.
people think.
That is actually
even-
very frustrating. It feels I've wasted 20 years of my career, and it didn't amount to anything. It kind of feels like that, right?
I mean, you do.
I mean, I did all the community
Yes.
stuff and open source libraries, so
Yes.
there is something there. But I mean, I would really have preferred to have that one startup exit. You know, when I came to Singapore, that was 13 years ago. There were hackathons at night everywhere. There were VCs running around throwing parties all the time. It was really bustling, and the VC money was flowing from the sky like manna, you know. And but still, most startups actually fail. 99% of all startups fail, and this is really true, and it's so frustrating, right? All the code that we've written for nothing is all gone with the wind.
I'm glad that you brought this up because we've talked about startups in other episodes before, and tech is also very closely related to the startup community, as you can see. But I think the notion that people have about people in tech, people in startups, is that you must be earning big money.
Yeah.
That is a stereotype. It's not necessarily true. In fact, majority of the time, it's not true.
Yeah.
If you do see like an example of somebody who's retired early and stuff like that, kind of like Martin, it's not necessarily because of
Yeah.
like a startup or because that we're software engineers or whatsoever.
Yeah.
A lot of us are just like average people just trying to get by, but with very resourceful means of using our money,
Yeah.
investing our money. So that's something that we really would like to emphasize, that it's a stereotype that we're all rich in this field.
Yeah, and I guess even though Singapore tries to be the Silicon Valley of Asia, Southeast Asia, and so on, and there is still a bustling startup scene, I believe.
Yes.
I would be very careful with betting your future wealth on your shares. Like making an exit, and then there's taxes and all, and there's dilution and everything. You don't even know how much you get out at the very end, right? Even if it's a successful exit, that you might end up with very little. You need to have a plan B. Like my work at Artling was always Artling A, plan A.
Oh.
And I mean, it could still happen. I mean, the
Plan B
company is not
Bitcoin.
gone, right? The company is still growing.
Plan B Bitcoin.
And plan B is Bitcoin. Yeah, exactly. It was my
Wow.
plan B, right? So
Might see my child. We'll go into that later.
yeah,
But definitely, I like that notion that there's always plan A, B, and C. I think
Yeah.
people get very stuck on like there is only this one means of like getting rich, getting successful. But really, it's about life can go in very unexpected ways. There is no sure win for anything. We're all taking bets here, kind of like betting on
Yeah.
Bitcoin in a way.
and I guess then we could say a word about diversification, right? So my startup journey, plan A, is one asset. People might think, I just put money into many startups, but maybe they are all actually correlated to each other. If the economy goes down, the VC money dries up, all startups die, right? And then there's no diversification happening here. If you put all your eggs on these asset types, they will all die simultaneously, right? Bitcoin is completely separate from that, right? So if maybe the startup scene dies down, maybe the crypto scene goes up, right? So, and then people say, in the crypto scene, you have to diversify. You have to buy all these other,
Oh, yes.
I call them shit coins, right? I don't believe in any other, I have never touched any other crypto coin.
Solana and
Yeah, Cardano, whatever. I would not touch them. I mean, it's basically literally gambling. I mean, they all go up, but then they go down and they never come back up again. That's the problem, except Ethereum.
And one guy can actually change the fate of it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So you cannot diversify within the crypto world. If you spread your money, you made lots of money with Bitcoin, then you spread it to like 100 different coins, it's still gambling, and they all move in tandem with Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin goes down, they all go down as well. So where's the diversification in that, right? So like you said, like property is probably a good thing. Building something is a good thing, startups, right? And then using some investment vehicle like ETS or Bitcoin or whatever is a good thing. Art might be a good thing, but I mean, in the art industry. Very difficult. Yeah.
Can I understand, sorry, about the art link? Is it a web agency or
No.
is it an art?
It's we are basically probably the world's largest database for contemporary art. So the artists can make a profile and they list their works, and then if somebody buys the artist will ship it to that person. So we don't hold inventory, and we spent 10 years onboarding all these artists and curating. So it's like not everybody can list. So our curators are trained art historian, they went to university and learned everything about art. They know what they're doing. So we have like an amazing collection of really, really good art, and we have consultants that know how to pull off big art projects. So many hotels here in Singapore and all over the world, and Sydney as well, on the Maldives, they actually buy their art from us. So when a new hotel opens, they need we need 5,000 artworks for like all these rooms, and then we try to find something that suits their budget and their style that they want to have. Yeah.
So since you're in this field, is art also one form of investment vehicle for you? Sort of like a plan, I don't know what.
No.
No?
Modern art, I feel, is really, really weird. Like most of the time I feel like this is art. It's like a splash of color. Anyone can do that, right?
Up for interpretation.
Yeah, so you would have to be really deep in that scene and know the who's who of the upcoming artists and so on. And I don't have the time to mingle with the scene and get to know everybody. So there's a lot of insider knowledge and rich people pushing up certain artists, and then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that artist will become valuable within their lifetime, right? So it's beautiful, but I don't dare to use this as an investment vehicle.
Yeah.
What's your take on NFTs?
Oh my god, yeah. Well, since it's on Ethereum and I think that everything except Bitcoin is a scam, I didn't touch it, and it turned out I was right. The whole NFT craze came. We actually implemented NFTs on our platform as well, against my will. And nobody ever bought any NFT from our platform. Nobody cares about it anymore. It's dead, basically. I think the philosophy behind it is quite cool, to have some digital thing that you can own. But Bitcoin already is that. Bitcoin is something digital that's also scarce. I mean, when you think about it, that's an incredible innovation, right? Normally we can copy files on a computer. Nothing digital can ever be scarce. You can just copy and paste it, but you can't copy and paste Bitcoin. So they solved that thing that digital things cannot be scarce, right? And with NFTs, I think the problem is simply when they are art, they are very large in the file size. So you can't put them on the blockchain, because a blockchain only works when the block space is limited, and there's a market competing for the block space. So what do? They actually put it on some other storage, maybe the interplanetary file system, or just Dropbox or anything, or Google Drive. And on the blockchain, they just put a pointer to where the actual file is.
Yeah.
So that means, and then usually that pointer points to a domain of the people who run the NFT marketplace.
Yeah.
What if that domain goes down? All the pointers are gone. So what if Dropbox goes down, or Google Drive, or wherever they store it? All the works are gone, right? So yeah, I don't know. It's the idea is cool, but it doesn't work on the Ethereum blockchain, and on any blockchain. It also wouldn't work on the Bitcoin blockchain, because there the block space is even scarcer. Yeah. So there was not recently, maybe sometime last year, I can't remember. There was a exhibition at the Art Science Museum where they did something about crypto and NFTs, and there were actually some really cool projects where I thought, oh, this is actually kind of cool in terms of art. Well, like, art is supposed to make you feel something and reflect on things. I think monkey pictures or like pixelated these kind of NFTs, that's not art. I mean, that's somebody messing around with Photoshop and then claiming that it's now worth $10,000, which is of course nonsense, right? Yeah, but I haven't dabbled with it myself enough, but there are some ways to make really innovative art with NFTs. But this whole thing that you own some digital thing and it belongs to you forever, that the way how it's set up right now is actually not fulfilling that promise.
I like how you explain it, because in this case, even though it's so closely related to, it's the same technology, right? Bitcoin and NFTs. In this case, you knew that it was technically unsound for what it was proposing. So this goes back to like that due diligence.
Yes.
Go back and then look at like the principles of that thing that you're investing and see if it actually makes sense for the long term.
Yeah.
And I think that was my feeling around NFTs as well. I was very dubious about it. I think the only thing I was interested in was the aspect of potentially protecting artists. Yeah, but even that is kind of like difficult. But the other like claims and assumptions just were very technically unfounded, and I was just like, I don't trust this enough. So naturally, that just kind of died off. But yeah, I think all in all, this summarized your perspective over investment, over finances, as an engineer who isn't like a big Silicon Valley Lang engineer pulling in hordes of money. And even if you're like that kind of engineer, you still need to save and invest as well. And otherwise, you'll just be spending it every time your paycheck comes in.
Maybe one last thing that we should mention. I'm actually very thankful that I am in Singapore. My journey wouldn't have worked like this in any other country, because there's capital gains tax. In Singapore, there's no capital gains tax, right? So in the US, if you want to sell your Bitcoin in the end and have a nice life, then you have to pay a lot of taxes, right? In Germany, actually, it's okay if you hold for 1 year, then it's also tax-free. But in Singapore, you can actually trade and there will be no capital gains taxes. So, and then the overall taxes in Singapore, I don't know if Singaporeans think that way, but as a German, this country is a tax haven like crazy, right? So I feel like the money that I earn stays with me and is not all given out for taxes, and I have nothing left at the end of the month. So then I can make my own decisions, which is actually very, very good. I hope that our politicians don't mess it up over time. I feel like there's a little bit of socialist tendencies recently, like the government is giving out free money left and right everywhere to dampen the effects of inflation, I guess, right, after COVID. I actually think that they've put fuel into the fire by doing this. If you give out free money, prices will go up. That's how it works.
Well,
so they actually create more inflation trying to dampen the effects of inflation. It's kind of insane.
I think they're really trying to be measured about it by giving out vouchers that are specific to supermarkets and food. So
but then the prices in the supermarket just go up. That's what's happening.
That's also true. But all in all, still like compared and relative to other countries, what you're saying is that Singapore, with its tiered tax system, is like very beneficial for individuals to feel like they have autonomy over their money. So it's also, it's also understanding the conditions of the places that you live in to be able to think about how you want to sort out your finances. Because obviously, if you were in the US, then your perspective of money might be different, because now you have to factor in like taxes and in quite like a large scale. So that might affect your retirement plans. That might affect this. So I guess what this boils down to is that this last principle is also understand the constraints or like the environment that you're working in when it comes to your finances. Taxes work differently in different countries. So I think a lot of people don't do this, but due diligence when it comes to like understanding how your finances work in the place that you are operating off, and especially with the age of like digital nomads, remote workers, people have flexibility to locate themselves in different countries depending on the company that you work for.
But I mean, most countries these days tax you globally, right? So especially Americans, no matter where they work, they will be taxed in the US, so they're screwed.
That's true, but you could also do
for Germany, if I spend half a year in the other country, then I will be taxed in the other country. So,
I think companies are cognizant of that as well. But there are other things you can do that even if you're located and you're paid like US salary and then tax US, but maybe you could own foreign property somewhere else and the taxes are different. So kind of like also doing that due diligence study and look at your different options.
I guess the digital nomad thing is less about taxes, but more about earning Western salary, but living in a country where the living cost is very low, so you have more left over which you can then invest.
Yeah. I think that's a really important aspect to think about as well. The cost of living.
Yeah.
That goes into like knowing your budget, right?
Yes, yeah.
That same amount of money that could fetch you like this amount of meals in one country could fetch you that amount of meals in another country.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things you
There's
can
a
do
lot of
around
things, yeah.
finances. Evaluate your constraints, know the opportunities, and just be smart about your money. So we hope like this segment and picking Martin's brain about how he manages his finances has enlightened not just our engineers, but also like this is very generic advice actually, not just for engineers. Yeah, has enlightened people about how they should spend.
We hope you enjoyed this segment of our interview with Martin and took away great financial tips and advice that you can use in your own financial strategies. In our final segment with Martin, we talk about how he has been settling into his new role as a full-time dad, especially his views on parenting as a software engineer. Stay tuned, and as always, do remember to like, comment, and subscribe to us across YouTube, Instagram, and our various podcasts and social media channels. Goodbye!